The intent of this video is to explain the importance of a job briefing, describe the contents of a job briefing, and identify when a job briefing must be performed. NFPA 70E Article 110, which is General Requirements for Electrical Safety Related Work Practices, includes a section on job safety planning and conducting a job briefing with employees. Before starting each job that involves exposure to electrical hazards, the employee in charge must complete a job safety plan and conduct a job briefing with the employees involved. The job safety plan shall be completed by a qualified person. It must be documented. It must include the following information. 1. A description of the job and the individual tasks. Identification of the electrical hazards associated with each task. A shock risk assessment, which identifies the voltages involved. The shock approach boundaries, both the limited and restricted, and the PPE required for shock prevention. An arc flash risk assessment, identifying the arc flash energy or incident energy an individual may be exposed, the arc flash boundary, and the PPE required for the arc flash potential. The job briefing shall cover the job safety plan and the information on the electrical safety checklist or the energized work permit. Additional job safety plans and job briefings shall be held if changes occur during the course of the work that may affect the safety of employees. As part of your job briefing with employees, one should consider brainstorming with employees on all the hazards, an open group discussion regarding the electrical hazards, the associated risks with those hazards, and any risk control methods can be used during your job briefing. Using a checklist for the electrical hazards is a useful tool and now required as part of NFPA 70E's requirements. NFPA 70E's Annex I provides a sample job briefing and planning checklist. This is a good tool to have when conducting a job briefing with employees. This checklist provides information that needs to be shared with employees. Even an individual who is working alone will find this checklist helpful and stimulate his or her thought process. For example, do I have the necessary skills for this task? Should I ask for a standby person? Here are some of the key elements of a job briefing when discussing with employees. Identify the electrical hazards, both shock and arc flash, associated with the job or task. What are the work methods or procedures that one must consider? Is there any special precautions that need to be considered? For example, are you working with capacitors which require additional safe work practices to ensure that they're safe to work on? How are you controlling the energy source? Is a lockbox required? What PPE is needed to perform the task safely? Discuss the emergency response plan. Everyone should have the emergency number, location within the building they are working, and any other roles and responsibilities. Part of the emergency plan should be to discuss on how one would remove a fellow employee if they came in contact with energized equipment. As part of your job briefing, discuss the hazards associated with the job or task. What are the voltage levels involved? Is medium voltage involved? Are you working near energized equipment? Are there any secondary or foreign voltage sources or backfeeds possible? Are there any unusual work conditions? Any adverse weather? What are the shock boundaries, both limited and restricted, for the voltages involved? What is the risk of an arc flash? Have we utilized the table within NFPA 70E identifying the likelihood of an arc flash to occur? What is the arc flash boundary? Is confined space involved? Is there excavation or trenches involved? What about slips, trips, and falls? Are you dealing with any hazardous materials like batteries? What work methods or procedures must be considered? De-energization is always the first priority. Is a standby person needed? Who's going to provide CPR or first aid? Have we reviewed the job plans, the single line diagrams, the vendor drawings? Who else needs to be notified? Do we have the proper voltage test equipment to perform the appropriate voltage tests? Are the grounding sets the appropriate size for the available fault current? Do we need barriers or barricades? How are we controlling the energy source? Are we performing lockout, tagout? Is a group lock box required? Is medium voltage involved? Do we require personal grounds? How do we perform I&I, both insulate and isolate? What are the appropriate clearances for the energy source? Have we tested the circuit for the absence of voltage? Do we need voltage-rated gloves for the task? Will we need insulated sleeves? Is there a chemical hazard that we need to be aware of? Do we need arc flash PPE, safety glasses, and a face shield along with our balaclava? Don't forget about your hearing protection. Emergency response needs to be discussed as part of your job briefing. Who needs to be notified first? What are the emergency contact numbers? What is the evacuation plan and route? Where is the location of medical first aid supplies and AED devices? As part of the job safety plan, the person in charge needs to identify all the tasks to be done and the associated electrical hazards associated with the tasks. What measures need to be taken to mitigate the hazards? The person in charge identifies the roles and responsibilities for each of the employees involved. The person in charge is responsible for ensuring the participants are aware of the existing conditions and provides all necessary information from the host employer. This person in charge identifies the electrical hazards involved with the tasks to be performed. The person in charge ensures the employees are wearing the appropriate PPE and is in good working order. The person in charge also shares with the team the emergency response plan. Job briefings need to occur before the start of each shift, and also whenever there is a change in scope during the shift. Job briefings may be a brief discussion with experienced workers, and also if it's routine work. But they need to be extensive if it's unfamiliar workers, it's non-routine work, it's complex or hazardous. Even individuals working alone should conduct their own job briefing. Now you're ready to conduct your job briefing.